Wait a minute. Huh?
Hmm. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to all the library professionals as well as all the research scholars to this third national level online workshop on exploring statistical techniques in research. I am Dr. Bhupendra Bansal, Secretary of ALIP, Association of Library and Information Science Professionals, along with my all executive committee members, welcomes you all. We have started our association in 2022 to develop the professional competencies and strengthen the social and professional virtue of library and information science in India. Our first program was organized as CKT College, Panvel in 18th December 2022. The official inauguration was done by the eminent Professor ARD Prasad along with Professor Vinit Kumar. The program was coordinated by Mr. Ramakant Navgare. The second program on NAC, organized at the Sri Sant Savtamali Gramin Mahavidyalaya, Fulamri, Aurangabad on 4th March 2023, which was coordinated by Dr. Ganesh Kulkarni. So we are fostering on academic development of our professionals. Research is also one of the most important factors for overall development of our profession as well as our professionals. The use of statistical techniques in our research are essential for planning, designing, collecting the data, analyzing, and drawing the meaningful interpretation and reporting the research findings. On the view of this, we have arranged this workshop for research scholars as well as supervisors and all the professors. For today's workshop, we have received total 680 participant registration from all over the India. All the parts from Maharashtra, Delhi, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Goa, Bihar, Karnataka, Punjab, Chhattisgarh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra, Telangana, and so on. So we have created one group, online group, where we have given some instruction to all the participants. I hope today's workshop will be very useful to you for the better understanding of these research components. Now I request Dr. Jyoti Bhaval to introduce our resource person, Professor Pradnya Vakpaijan. Over to Jyoti.
Thank you, Dr. Bansal. Personally, I am very, very delighted to introduce our beloved madam, Pradnya Vakpaijan madam, to all the participants. Professor Pradnya Vakpaijan is head of Department of Education at SNDT Women's University. She has done MSc from Nagpur University, then MAd and PhD from SNDT Women's University. She has done PGD in Education Management from University of Mumbai and also BEd with Special Education from IGNOU. Madam has reached 25 years of teaching at PG level experience and 26 years of research contribution in her field. She's an excellent administrator who has worked as controller of examination in charge of affiliation section of SNDT Women's University. She has active contribution in many professional and administrative committees of our university as well as outside university. Presently, she is a co-dean of Faculty of Interdisciplinary, and she is a director of IQSC of our SNDT Women's University. Madam loves teaching and she is a fine and beloved teacher of our university, and she's hardcore teacher, and her subject of teaching are quantitative and qualitative research methodology, curriculum development, education management, education leadership and administration, assessment and evaluation of secondary and senior secondary education. So far, 7 students have completed their PhD under her guidance, and currently 6 are pursuing their PhD. More than 150 students have completed their dissertation under her guidance. She has minor and major research projects that are funded by ICSSR, MSCW, and SUTI to her credit. Madam has developed e-content for MOOC on development of school leadership capacities and management skills that was sponsored by UNESCO. Another e-content on introduction to Education Management was also developed by Madam for EPG Pathshala. Madam has also developed an OER on climate change education under Open Education for Better World under UNESCO chair. Madam has also organized various seminars, conferences, faculty development programs in her field. Besides fields of education, she is also keen in other subjects like mathematics, metacognition, women empowerment, social justice, peace education, brain-based learning, experimental learning, and many more. I have worked with Madam for so many years, and I know Madam is doing much more than what I just mentioned here. So just because the time constraint, I have curtailed her information. And Madam has expertise in research method, and we are all eager to listen to her in today's session and another one more session. So without a minute delay, I welcome Madam again, and I request Madam to start her session.
Thank you, Dr. Jyoti, Dr. Bhupendra, and the executive members of ALIP. I'm extremely thankful to all of you for giving me this opportunity to interact with people from very different fields. Though I understand that the library is something that is the part of everyone's life. So I'm very happy to interact with you all. So today, how are we going to go about that? Like I'll be just dealing with some general aspects of a research, because I'm sure that we have right from the novice to the expert in this gathering. So therefore, we will just look into certain basic, where like the as a researcher we keep asking the question, so we will just go about it, and then later we will be talking about the tool construction and how our tool they decide our statistics. So that will be the next part of it. And then afterwards, in the next session, we will be dealing with the Excel, and we will be actually look into how we can work with our data, because probably you will have your data with you in the next session. So thank you very much, everyone. And what actually Jyoti madam talked about, I'm not so great person, but yes, I enjoy working with people and try to explore new fields. And library is always like it's a, I believe that the library is a field that I really love to visit and to explore things. And the information is actually stored in the library. So therefore, your field probably is different, but it's not in isolation, because as I said, the library is a part of everybody's life. So I also thank Bhupendra sir for sharing some of your topics, and those topics probably will help us like to discuss uh, whatever the queries we are going to have. So I'm not somebody who is, maybe I'm born few years before than you, so that's how I'm in a way that age wise senior. So let us discuss what a research is, what are the problems we encounter when we collect the data, and what care one has to take when we go for the tool construction. Because again, this is my experience that like we start and we complete the construction of tool, and then we get stuck that what statistics am I supposed to use. Now please make a note that whenever we are uh, conducting research, so since then, right from our identification of our problem, our objectives, our hypothesis, and then our analysis, they should be aligned. So if they are aligned, then we do not actually face the problem. So right from the beginning, you have to think about the analysis part. Maybe when you explore more, you may want to go for the advanced statistics, that is fine, but then you need to have the data that demands to fulfill your objective. So as we know, we are going to look into whether it is an activity, whether it is a process, or it is the product. So we have the different types of researches, and these different types of researches, they help us to answer these questions. So when we are developing any kind of the program, the training program, and when we want to see the effectiveness of it, then we say that yes, it's a product that I have developed. In case of the computer sciences people, they develop their softwares, and that is the product. Now we people are working in the field where we are dealing with the human beings, and specifically if I look into the library sciences, it's a field where you have the human being aspect as one aspect, so human resource where you actually can work with, and the another, that is your infrastructural, or your in your library terms, whatever the resources you have. So that is the another aspect of it. So library as an object, when we look at it, itself has a life. So your field is actually so like holistic, that you have the ample of scope to dig out the things there. Okay, so for our research, basically we need to have that open mindedness. We need to accept the situations. We must understand the things from different perspectives, and we must be free from the prejudices. Now, along with this, the first question that any researcher has in mind, it is the research question, and that is something which is the foundation of our research process. So our research process starts with the research questions. And then the question arises, where should I begin? So your research begins with the questions, and then there are a lot of ways you try to find out the questions. So we human beings are curious. So our curiosity may give a birth to our questions. Then you identify the information gaps. Then there are some of the aspects that are very controversial, like in the digital era, should we have the existence of the library the way we have? It's now there are many people who are arguing on it. So there can be a controversy, and that leads to research question. Sometimes you also go for the replication of the study. So if we talk about the libraries that were existing maybe the 20 years back, and after 20 years now, what is the scenario? And it is, you are replicating the study. However, because of this gap, and in the gap, so many technological changes have come up, and that's why you are replicating the study. Then the literature review that we all know. Besides this, you discuss with people, you interact with people, you understand how people perceive different things, and that lead to our research question. Now, besides that, there can be many things. It can be your own experiences that actually help us to come up with the research questions. Now, when we talk about the research questions, research questions, they must be focused. What we want to study, we must focus on that particular aspect. So if I'm dealing with the people's perceptions about the library facilities, then I must take up only perception. I should not be talking about their attitude towards library. So my definitions of perceptions must be very clear. So the perception is different and attitude is different. So I need to have the clarity. The moment I have the clarity, then my questions will be automatically focused. Another important aspect, that is the empirical. Now, since we are talking about the quantitative data, because we are going to have the statistics, so therefore we say that it is the empirical data that we are going to deal with. So the data that we are going to collect will be in number. So therefore, whatever the variable I'm going to measure, it must be measurable. So how can I measure it, and how can I verify it? So if I want to have the data regarding the perceptions about the facilities in the library or library facility, then I must take up certain questions, and those questions that should lead to the perceptions about the library facilities. Now, if I want to, measure them, so what kind of a scale I must use? Because my data, what I want, should be in number. So even if I'm asking the questions through a questionnaire, how am I going to score it up? If it is a rating scale, then what kind of the scoring? Am I going to use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or am I going to use 1, 2, 3, 4? So I look into my tool first, and therefore the tool construction is extremely important step that leads to your perfect data collection and then the analysis of data. So your variable must be measurable, and we must be in a position to verify. The research questions that we are framing should be very clear. So everybody should understand the research question in the same way. So for example, if we are talking about that, is there any relationship between reading habits and the socio-economic status of individual? Now, it's very clear that the researcher wants to look into the relationship, and it has the two aspects. One is the reading habit of an individual, and second is, socio-economic status. Or maybe we need to understand, the intrinsic motivation of person and the reading habits of person. So there has to be a clarity in the research question, so that clarity helps researcher to go ahead without any kind of hindrance, and also it conveys this, the perfect messages to the reader also. So when the reader reads our researches, they get a clear idea what we have done. Also, that your research questions, they can be based on the prior researches or theory. So it's not that your research question should not be based on any theories, or it should not be based on any earlier researches. It is all possible that when we are conducting the researches, we need to take into consideration some of the theories. And if those theories are giving us some information, on the basis of that theories, we design our research questions. So if there is some theory that talks about if the individual has a better metacognitive skills, then their exploration of literature is better. So if the theory is talking about the aspects of metacognition and it is giving me some of the indications, then I may consider that, that is a base, and then I proceed with, designing my own questions. It is also possible that the earlier researchers might have taken that, yes, the reading habits and the socioeconomic status. But now I want to understand that reading habits and maybe the gadgets that are available to the individual, because now we don't expect, the students to come in the library and sit, because now, there are many comments that the teachers they make that the nowadays the students, they don't read. However, the students, they say, who told you that we do not read? Have you read this book? Have you read that book? And when they give you the list, you are surprised that they are reading. But then you don't see, like they are coming to the library. So the point here is that, okay, maybe that time the scenario was like that, but now it is changing. That doesn't decide whether that the students, they lost their reading habits. Maybe, the form is different, or maybe we need to explore it more. Now let us talk about, this is something which has a connection with our tool construction and other things. So therefore, we will just go into this different types of research questions that we can have. So whatever the topics Dr. Bhupendra shared with me, I could, uh, make out that some of the topics, they are exploratory in nature, some are descriptive in nature. Explanatory, I didn't get much in your case. Also, the predictive are less, and some I have got is the evaluative. Now let us further move ahead, since again we are talking about the construction of tool and further the scoring of it. So exploratory questions. Now the exploratory questions, they generally are, the clarifying questions. So what are the facilities that are available in XYZ libraries? So it talks about what exists. Then the exploratory questions, they also clarify the, populations, like how many people they visit library. So what are the footmarks? So those kind of questions. Or maybe when you talk about how many books on particular area of specialization are there in the library, because some of the libraries are exclusive libraries. So in those exclusive library, what is the collection of book that we have? Then clarifying the ideas. Now, in the exploration, we also talk about the perceptions, as we discussed that there, I think there is one of the study that somebody is, taking up regarding, the perceptions of people regarding the library. So, the perceptions can be also for the facilities. The perception also can be regarding the services that are provided to us. So attitude towards services is something different, and the perceptions about it is something different. So we may have the perceptions that help us to understand what people they are thinking about our the services we are providing. And then when we talk about the opinion, that how or what are your expectations from the library, further what do you expect us to do? So maybe we are trying to understand what they want from us. So in order to improve our services, in order to improve our practices, we may go for the the questions where we are uh, asking people to give us some suggestions. The next kind of questions that we have for the researches are the descriptive questions. Now these descriptive questions, where we get the a very specific facts. So the numbers again here are there, but very specific. And in case of the libraries, you talk about your all infrastructure or the facility library material that you have. So it has a specific specificity, and you have those data. Now also it is very important to understand that whatever the specific kind of facilities that we have, and then the catering services that we have. So is there any gap do you have, or any mismatch do we have? Besides it, the descriptive questions, they where you obtain the facts to describe the issue. Now we were just describing that the teachers, they may just have, this is the opinion, key students are nowadays, they don't use the library, so therefore they are not in the the reading the books and all. However, when the data was collected, it is observed that the students, they do read the books, but the form what they are reading is different than what we were expecting. So your facts actually provide us the data where the issue what you have in mind can be also resolved. So let us come with the facts, and then the facts will lead to, to understand that particular issue from different perspective. Then descriptive questions, they also summarize the population characteristics. So descriptive research is where we collect the data from the sample and then we apply it to the larger population. So in short, the descriptive research is where we have the more sample size, but then whatever the inferences we are drawing out of it, we apply it to the general population. So population means the set of individual from which we have selected the sample, and we are then applying it to that population. So we study that and we then apply it to them. Then we also examine the non-causal relationship. So non-causal relationship, like when you go for the experimental type of research, we talk about the cause and effect relationship. However, when we go for the ex post facto studies, we do not actually look into the cause effect relationship. However, we take the sample that is exposed to, yeah, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So we take the sample who probably is not, like it is not feasible to put the person into trouble. So just for example, if somebody wants to study whether the, like uh, the students who are emotionally disturbed and students who are not emotionally disturbed. So it's not that you are going to, disturb the child emotionally and then study their stress level. No. But then you will take the data of the same age group where the students are emotionally disturbed and the other set of data where the students are not emotionally disturbed, and then you will compare their stress level. So here we are not actually developing any kind of a program to reduce the stress or something like that. So we are just trying to describe it, and then we don't want to, find out this is what, will be effective in that case, but we just compare that one is uh, exposed to that particular things and another is not, but it is naturally, we are not exposing one group. Now when we go for the experimental researches, then you examine the causal relationship. So we talk about the dependent variable and we talk about the independent variable. So when we go for the explanatory researches where you want to test the effect of independent variable on the dependent variable, then you actually go for the experimental studies. Now these studies, they try to give us the understanding about the cause effect relationship. Now if one wants to go for the like bit talk about the interaction effect, then the person can go for the 2x2 analysis that we will talk about it later. So we have the hypothesis, we test this hypothesis, and when it is repeated to a very large extent and we establish the external validity of the experiment, then only we build the theories. Otherwise, we do not go for it. So if for example, in our field, like a cooperative learning strategies have been found to be very, very effective. Now, these strategies initially they were used at a very, very large scales in the schools with the adolescents, in the colleges and things like that. Now later, the management people also tried to take those cooperative learning strategies in training the people. So again, when it is found that with the adults also, these cooperative learning strategies, they are working very well. And therefore, like the new cooperative learning strategies are coming in. So right now we have 40 cooperative learning strategies. But it's kind of that the cooperative learning is found to be very effective across age group. That is something like we talk about. Now I found some of the problems that are evaluative research in nature. So when we are evaluating the impact of some policy, we are evaluating the impact of some schemes, or we are evaluating the impact of some programs. So I think impact of some digital technologies and things like that, that is what I read other day when sir shared the things with me. So when we go for the evaluative kind of researches, so we talk about the impact of those policies and the schemes and the programs and the activities that are carried out by the government agency, no doubt about it. But we also, when we talk about our own organization and we want to have, some improvement in our organization, then definitely we also first need to look at what is the status of my organization right now. Then identify the areas where I want to improve. And after that, decide the policies. This is the area where we are not able to do well. The moment we understand the area where we are not able to do good, or we are not performing up to the mark or more than what is expected, then take it as a target, decide any policy at your organization level also, or you may have some of the programs to improve the situation. So in the evaluative study, if at the first level I am carrying out the evaluation and I'm just reporting this is the situation, this is the area of improvement, so I'm evaluating right now that particular organization. But if I want to improve the situation, and as a administrator I have decided to have some scheme, and then I see the effect of that scheme, so maybe the policy that you have restructured or you redesigned, it actually influence to the situation, and your situation get improved. So in the evaluation, some people, they call it as the need analysis study also, where they try to look into what is the the present status of it. So the baseline surveys are conducted, especially in the field of education. We carry out the baseline survey, so we decide, okay, this is what the situation is, and then we proceed further to improve the situation. So evaluative studies actually help us to improve the situation and to identify some of the lacunas and to rectify the situation. Again, you can look into the effectiveness of that, whatever the programs that you actually design for people. Okay. Not for people, but to improve the situation. The another is the predictive questions. For the researches, when we go for the regression analysis and we go for the predictive questions. Now, this predicts certain aspects. It predicts some of the characteristics, and it's very widely used. Say, for example, if we talk about, how many dwelling units we will require in Greater Mumbai in next 5 years. So from the present status, we calculate about the estimation. Or if we are talking about the environmental studies, for the environment, we talk about that today this is the scenario of our environment. Down the line 5 years, what will be the status of our environment? So maybe now if we talk about the quality of air, so we can predict that if today this is the situation, then what will be after next year, what will be the situation. And these kind of the predictions are being done in economics very widely, and also in case of the environmental sciences also. Other fields also, they make use of the predictive studies. Then also we predict the characteristics. I'm just trying to give example from our field. Say for example, if we talk about the job satisfaction of teachers. So now the job satisfaction has so many things, they depend on your. So one maybe your salary, second maybe your workload, the third maybe the work culture that we have. Now out of this, which one has the close association, and are we going to get any path of that? So that help us to understand the relationship between these various variables and the strength of the association that one can go for. And for that we go for the path analysis. So you decide which characteristics or the variables has the close connections. Also, in the predictive questions, when we frame, we use some of the theories, that some theories or some descriptions that help us to predict certain things. And especially in the science and the economics, we develop the predictive equations also. So the predictive questions, as I was talking about, these are some of the aspects that the researchers they actually look into, and probably in some of the field it is predominant. Now when we are looking at the library sciences, there are many kind of questions that we can actually frame. Okay, so any kind of questions or the queries, or we are going to have it at the end?
We will have
So
it
we
at
will.
the end of the
Okay. So now after we design our questions, the next parameter that comes is our the construction of tool. Now we have our research objectives in place, and now we have to move ahead with the research tools. Now again, I'll just briefly go through it, and because our focus is more on the analysis, so we will talk about it more. So now you identified your research question. Yeah, this is a research question. Now for those research question, first you think about whether it is exploratory, whether it is descriptive, or I want to have this also, I want to have that also. As I said, the evaluative. Now after that, the most important thing is that like, what am I measuring? What I want to measure, that is something which is important to answer. And your measurement is done by the tools. And these tools are constructed by the researcher. And if our tools are constructed well, then automatically the data that we get becomes more reliable. So the measurement is very, very systematic process. But for that measurement, again, the different tools that we design. So for designing the tool, the first question that we should ask to ourselves, what am I going to measure? So what is that I want to measure? That should be our first question. So I talked about that, yes, I want to study the perceptions of students regarding the facilities provided. So now I want to measure the perception. Now whose perception? It is the student's perception. Now the next question, the moment I am very clear about what I want to measure, the next question I put to myself, how am I going to measure it? So I have lot of tools with me. Either I can go for questionnaire, I can go for the rating scale. I may take their interviews. I also may, observe their behavior or the comments that they are making. So there are choices I have. But if we are going for the researches where we are going to use the statistics, the most important thing is that your data should be in a number. If we are taking the data in the text form, then we have to make sure that how are you going to convert it into number. So generally, when we want our data to be in number form, we either go for the questionnaire or we go for the rating scale. That is much easier. So the next question that the researcher answer is that how am I going to measure? So once we get to know that yes, I have so many options with me. So I have the scales, I can carry out the questionnaires, then I can have so many things I actually have with me. So which device or the instrument that I'm going to use, that is something important. Now, sometimes some of the data, we may collect it from the records. And if that is the demand of our research, then we just go for that. So if I talk about the student absenteeism, I take their attendance records, and then if it is one of my variable. If you want to measure the footprints in the library, definitely you will collect the data from the registers that you have. Okay. Now every tool has its own advantages and every tool has its own limitation. Now, since we are talking about the tools and the techniques of data collection, so I would like to just mention here is that when we talk about the techniques require some more skills at the researcher's end. So interview is a technique and interview schedule is my tool. Observation is a technique, but observation schedule or observation protocol, if I'm preparing, those are my tools. So the techniques, they demand some specific qualities at the researcher's end. So if I have to take the interview, then I must have some of the skills like establishing the rapport with the respondent. I need to be a good listener. I need to be non-judgmental. So all these qualities I need to have with me if I have to take the interviews. So the techniques, they demand something more from us as a researcher. Now the important thing is that whenever we are collecting the data in quantitative type of researches, we actually talk about the levels of measurement. The first level, that is your nominal data. So the nominal data, it is where you are just classifying your data on the basis of some variable. Say, for example, I want to compare the perceptions about library of girls and boys. So now the data that I am collecting on the gender can be classified into two. So that becomes my nominal data. If you want to, look into the data that the people who are visiting the library. So designation wise, if you just look into that, who are the teachers? Like, is it a CHB, contractual, assistant professor, associate professor? Who are the one who are using library the most? Now this designation becomes the nominal data because on the basis of which we are going to divide or classify our data. The second one is the ordinal data. Now, ordinal data is when you give the ranking to it, then it becomes the ordinal data. So, for example, like, you have given the list and which kind of literature would you like to read? So, give your preferences, give your 3 preferences. So, then that becomes your ordinal data. Now, very, very popular is the interval skills. Now, interval skills are used very widely in all social sciences and also in library sciences. Now, these interview skills, they are the best tools to be considered when we talk about the quantitative researches, because the scoring is easy in that sense that, when you are preparing your interval skills, you go through a rigorous process of it, and then you have the maximum and minimum marks, and whatever the respondent are giving the responses, we score it. Now, the rating points that we have, those depend on what are you measuring. So if you are measuring the interest in reading, then the interest is the attribute that can be measured with the rating point, how frequently, the person reads. So the interest in reading will talk about whether person reads, how frequently the person reads. So it is always I read, or sometimes, or rarely, and never I am interested. So now the interval scale, the rating points are depends on what are we measuring. Suppose it is, the attitude towards something, then we talk about whether strongly agree, strongly disagree, and disagree. So the interval scales are the scales where the difference in the 2 points is the same. So if we are considering the rating points where 1, 2, 3, 4 is the marking for the positive statements. So 1 and 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. So everywhere it is a difference of 1. So therefore your interval scales are the scales that are used very widely in all the fields to measure the attitude of people, to measure their like their preferences also sometimes, and their interest in various aspects. So it is very widely used by all the fields, and also the marketing and the management people. The next one, that is the ratio scale. Now here you talk about the proportion between the variables. Now ratio scale is generally used in the laboratories, where we talk about the absence of something completely. So in the life sciences, or in biological sciences, or maybe in chemistry also, when the solutions are prepared and all, it is in the ratio 1:4, 1:3, or it is 0:2. So when the ratio scales we do not make use of, because we are dealing with human being. That is first thing. And when we are dealing with human being, there is no absence of something. So we cannot say that there is a stress is absolutely absent. No, it's not that. So we don't go for the ratio scales when we are dealing with the human beings. So whenever you are designing the tool, please keep in mind your research objectives that are derived from your research questions. Okay. What is your operational definition that you have to take into consideration? Now your operational definition guides you to prepare your tool. If your operational definition is extremely clear, then you just can go ahead. Then there are different forms of data, and which form you want, then you need to look into it. Similarly, look at the characteristics of your target sample. So if you are dealing with the reading habits of a graduate and the reading habits of teachers, so you need to think about your target sample, and accordingly your tool will definitely differ. So age, their competencies, cultural background, if it is the requirement of your research, then you have to, because in the field of our education we do consider all these aspects, because we are dealing with the school children, and also when we deal with the school children, we have a lot of variations right from the medium of instruction to the cultural background. So our tools should be valid. Tools must be reliable. This tool must have the objectivity, the usability, the adequacy, and it has the discrimination power. Okay. Now, just going ahead before we go for the the further analysis part, or how we go ahead with the analysis. The first one is you have to identify the constructs. Now, these constructs are nothing but the imaginations or the ideas of experts. Now, say for example, if we talk about the motivation. Now, the moment we say motivation, the next question arises, motivation for what? So, is it a motivation for reading? Is it a motivation for writing? So, what do I mean by motivation? That is the first question. Now, the motivation per se, the motivation is not sense by any of us, but we see the behavior and then we say the person is motivated or person is not motivated. So your constructs are the ideas or the thoughts of the experts, and these ideas are very broad. So the constructs are very broad. Now, when I have to apply this, I have to move on to the concepts. Now, where I look for the concepts, so I go through the thesaurus, I go through the dictionaries, and I take up the, what people mean by, the motivation, how the motivation is defined by different people. Now, I understand that, yes, this is how the motivation is described by psychologists. Now, I want to take it for the motivation for reading. Now, I have to club the motivation and reading. Now, reading, I know, okay, this XYZ thing means reading. Now, if I want to look into the motivation for reading, then automatically I will operationalize that in that particular manner. The motivation is something that drives a person to do something. Now, here I am interested in their motivation for the reading. So, what motivates them to read? So, it is what are the different drives that like that push the person for the reading material. Now, again, if you want to be very specific, that yes, I want them, their motivation for reading Marathi literature. Now, within that also you can have, your own understanding of it, or if you want to go for more specification, you can move like that. Okay. Now, these are the concepts. Then you come down to the, variable, that motivation for reading. Now, the moment I define it very clearly, then I start creating the pool of items, that what I mean by that. After I create the pool of statements or the items, then I go for the validity. Now validity, again, we have the different types of validity. According to what tool you are using, then you go for the establishing those validity. Generally, we go for the construct validity and the content validity. Besides that, if your research is to develop some, like the aptitude test, so then you go for the predictive validity. Then you go for the pre-pilot testing and you do the item analysis where you get the discrimination index. Then we go for the pilot study and we establish the reliability, and our final form of our tool is ready. Now, in some cases, we establish the norms. Now, the norms are established again by using the statistics. Generally, we talk about the Stanine scores that are calculated to establish the norms. In the field of education, we do have many standardized tests like multiple intelligence test, where we establish the norms. So we calculate the age norms, we calculate the gender norms. So we calculate the norms like that, and then that test become a standardized, we come up with the manual. So now this is the entire process. Now everywhere you require the statistics. Now where do we require the statistics? That is when you talk about your validity. So I want to measure what? So I started with the construct, I come to the concept, and I come with my variable. Now moment I decide that this is the variable I have to measure. Then I think about whether the questionnaire suits me or rating scale suits me, or any, like I want to go for the opinionaire, what I want to go for. Then you talk about your skill specific attribute, as we discussed, that when you talk about your skill specific attributes, you decide, okay, the target audience that you are focusing on, and you take their characteristics, and then you try to design your tool according to your population that you want to focus on. So you establish the validity. Now, after validity, when we go for the reliability, here you require the statistics. So our statistics starts right from the tool construction. So when we talk about the establishment of reliability, the first step that our tool must be reliable. It means the results what we are going to get out of our study, people must rely on it. And when will they rely? If our tools are made reliable. And for that, we establish the reliability of the tool. Now, when we will be working in the Excel, that time we will be taking this part ahead. Okay. Yeah. Now, when we collect the data, now we got the data, and our data collected is in, like a number that we have. Now, after that, the first step that we have to do is that we have to prepare or tabulate the data in a systematic way. And this tabulation of our data is preparing a master sheet of a data. Okay. Now, this is just a sample I'm sharing with you all. I hope my screen is visible. Now, this particular study was conducted by one of the researchers, and this was environmental awareness, environmental friendly habits, and environmental friendly behavior. Now, whenever you are writing your objectives must be very specific. Now, this particular researcher wanted to study the environmental awareness, environmental friendly habits, and environmental friendly behavior of the students. She also wanted to compare the gender wise difference in the environmental awareness, gender wise difference in environmental friendly habits, and gender wise difference in environmental friendly behavior. So her tool was, the first was the personal data sheet. Now, in the personal data sheet, she has collected the data related to, the institute from where they are, and also, the faculty. So if you are interested in faculty, that okay, arts, commerce, science, then you can. But if it is a school, you cannot have that. So whatever the attributes you are taking, you have to prepare your master sheet like that. So in case, suppose this was a study conducted for the students. Now suppose somebody has conducted or somebody wants to conduct, the environmental awareness of teachers. Now you can have the comparison on the basis of so many factors. It can be, on the basis of the age. It can be on the basis of the experience. It can be on the basis of the subject they are teaching. So similarly, if you are talking about the perceptions, so perception can also be studied on the basis of age, the experience, then their background, or maybe, the subjects they are teaching. So if as a library, if you want to look into the perceptions, how people are perceiving who are visiting the libraries, you also can have that background with you. Now, if the moment you have okay, I want to study, the age wise difference in perception. So I will be writing, okay, age. Now this I should ask in my personal data sheet. So please make it sure that your title, your objectives, your hypothesis, they go hand in hand. Ensure that whatever the data, whatever the objectives you are framing, you are collecting the data for that. So if you want to compare the teacher's environmental awareness on the basis of age, make sure that your personal data sheet has that information. If it is experience, then you must ask that information to the teachers. If it is the subject what they are teaching, then yes, please go for that. If you are trying to understand that who are the students who are visiting the library most, so you just can have their data, that which faculty they are from, and then also it would be very interesting to look into the what kind of the curriculum they actually have. So one step if we try to go ahead, so maybe in that connection you are also considering the teachers, that is it that the frequent changes in their curriculum redesigning, that motivates them to visit the library more. So whatever the parameters we are taking, or whatever the variables we are taking, make sure that we are collecting that information from the teachers. So variables, that these are nothing but the attributes that can be measured and that varies. So these are the two aspects that your variables are defined. So these are the attributes that can be measured and it varies. So interest in reading varies from person to person. Can I measure the interest in reading? Yes, I can measure the interest in reading. How can I measure it? So somebody might say a person who is visiting the library or who is issuing more book is interested. But then can you ensure that? Or I want to go for the self-reporting scale. So we actually can think like this. We can go on thinking when we are conducting research, but make sure that you are, whatever your objectives are, you are collecting the data in your personal data sheet. If you are using 2 or 3 or 4 variables in your study, or maybe if you are using a tool and this tool has 2, 3, 4 sub aspects of it, then please make sure that you are counting or scoring those sub skills also, and then probably that makes your entire skill. So if we talk about the reading skill, it has so many things. So the reading has, right from the speed, then pronunciation, so many things are there in reading. So similarly, if you want to talk about these various aspects of reading skill, then you will definitely score it up. So that scores needs to be written in a separate form, and the total reading skill will be in a separate form. Okay, so after you have this data, now the first analysis that comes is your, as I said earlier, that your reliability, you start with your statistics in place. So tomorrow we'll discuss that, the test retest method, and how we can do that. Okay, so that will be our first aspect, first part of the session. Okay, now after you prepare your master sheet, the first thing that we have to do is that the data is analyzed. First, it is a descriptive analysis of data, and second part is the inferential analysis of data. Now, the descriptive analysis of data is equally important, because in inferential analysis, we have to make a decision. Which statistical technique I have to make use of? Okay. So whether I have to make use of the parametric tests, or I have to make use of a non-parametric test, that will be decided by my descriptive analysis of data. So when we go for the descriptive analysis of data, we calculate the values and we compare those values. So in descriptive analysis of data, we first talk about the measurement of central tendencies, that is mean, median, mode, measurement of variability, that is standard deviation. Then we talk about the measurement of dispersion, where we calculate the skewness and kurtosis. If our data does not fulfill some of the conditions, then we cannot make use of the parametric test. Now, I think what are these parametric tests and non-parametric tests, that we will discuss in our next session. Now, I hope now whatever you have listened to. So, if you have any questions, sir, till what time I can continue, or should we take the question and answers?
No, you can continue now.
Okay. So now the moment we have this data in place, we first go for the descriptive analysis. Now, if I have to go for the descriptive analysis, the most important step, that is the first I have to do, is that the calculation of measures of central tendency. Now, in calculating the measures of central tendency, I first go for the calculation of mean, calculation of median, and calculation of mode. Now, the mean gives us the average. The median is the exact midpoint below which your 50% of your population is going to lie, and above which your 50% of population is going to exist. Then the mode is the frequent occurring number. Like now suppose here, if you just see the entire thing, you will find that the 20 is the most occurring number over here. So that becomes your mode. So in your distribution, the number that is frequently occurring, that is known as your mode. The next one that we talk about is the standard deviation. Now the standard deviation is the distance. I'll just share one screen with you so that you know what I'm talking will make sense. Yes. Yes. Now the entire research, when we go for the quantitative researches, as you know, that we are taking our sample in a very, very systematic way, because logic is simple. If my population, now suppose I am dealing with the Marathi medium students in Greater Mumbai of 9th standard, then my population is the 9th standard students of Marathi medium in Greater Mumbai. So say for example, they are like 2 lakhs. Now I can't collect the data from all of them. So what I do, I just list out the schools in Greater Mumbai, and then randomly I select the schools and then I visit the schools and then I take the data. Now I take the data maybe from 500 or 600 students, but I apply it to those 2 lakh. So if I'm getting the finding that the students' reading habits are very average, so it is applicable not only to my 500, but it will be applicable to 2 lakh, because my population is Marathi medium 9th standard students in Greater Mumbai. I will not generalize it for, all 9th standard students. I am very specific. The 9th standard Marathi medium students from Greater Mumbai. So I will generalize my findings only to them from where I picked up my sample. Okay. So the first thing that we are going to tomorrow, we will discuss about how do we interpret the mean, median and mode. So this is the normal probability curve. Now it is, as all of us know about, the normal probability theory talks about the distribution of any kind of a trait or the attributes. So the normal probability theory says that you take any trait and you will find in nature it is distributed like that. So for example, they say the height of individual. So too much of height, very few people. Dwarf, very few. And majority will lie somewhere here. So we say the average, height of an Indian male is, 5'3", 5'4", or whatever. The average height of Indian women is 5 feet or something. Now this is the, like the average that we actually look for. So the mean is the value that gives us the average. Now the median, as I said, whatever we get tomorrow, we will discuss it with more examples and very precise examples. Now, when we talk about the skewness is something that is your the inclination of your normal probability curve that is shifted. Now, sometimes when you are distribution, you are getting like this, where your curve is not like a NPC, it is something different. So this curve is a negatively skewed curve. Now, in our case, it happens when our papers are very easy. So everybody score good marks, score more marks. If our papers are very tough, so everybody scores less marks. So the skewness is, like the how your distribution is, dispersed. So that is the measure of dispersion. So the skewness is one measure of dispersion. Another measure of dispersion is our kurtosis. Now kurtosis is the area that is occupied by our NPC. Now, when NPC, normal probability curve, it has its value that is given by statistician. If it is the NPC, then this entire area that is occupied, they have given it as 0.26. Okay. Now, if after calculation, I get value which is more than 0.263, then my distribution is said to be platykurtic. So this is the kind of a graph I will be getting where, it's like a plateau. So the height is less, you can see, and it is flattened. So that is a platykurtic distribution. If my value is less than 0.263, then I get this kind of curve, and that is known as leptokurtic. So the leptokurtic has, picade figure, and this distribution is less. On the other hand, the platykurtic distribution, where your scores are more heterogeneous. Now, I'm coming to the next one, that is the standard deviation. Now, it's very, all things are connected. Now, if it is a platykurtic, then, my distribution will be like this. It will be more spread out. Now, looking at the standard deviation. Now, if you have a mean over here, standard deviation is nothing but the distance of the scores, the distribution of the scores away from your mean value. So if your group is very heterogeneous, naturally you are going to have the more dispersed group, and therefore the distribution will be platykurtic and your group will be heterogeneous. If our group is homogeneous, then naturally your standard deviation will be less. So this is from mean, it is 1 plus 2 plus 3. Here it will be -1, -2, -3. So the standard deviation, the kurtosis, all things are interrelated. So the kurtosis value indicates whether your distribution is leptokurtic or it is platykurtic. If our distribution is platykurtic, then naturally our distribution of the scores is widespread. It is away from the mean. Standard deviation will be more and the group is heterogeneous. If it is leptokurtic, then the group is more homogeneous. The distribution is not so away from the mean. So your standard deviation value is less. So it's very simple logic that is given by these theories. Now, this is the first aspect of it, that is the descriptive analysis of the data. So we are going to have the three kind of calculations over here. Measures of central tendency, that will include mean, median, mode. Measures of variability, that is your standard deviation, and measures of dispersion, where we are going to calculate the kurtosis and the skewness. Now this will talk about your population. So we work on sample and then we generalize it for the population. So I think we can stop here today. We can have some questions, because in our next session we are So those who have the data with them, so please prepare your master sheet, or have your master sheet, so that we can um, just work on whatever the objectives you have framed. Yeah. So shall we go for the question answers, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Over to you, Jyoti, ma'am.
In the chat box, I haven't seen any question as such, but I request if anyone has a question, you can just raise your hand.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
good evening, ma'am. First of all, let me congratulate our resource person for giving us, a very wonderful lecture on the basics of research and its various component. My only, but it's not a question. I just want some, explanation on the key terms you have used there. That is pre-pilot study and pilot study. What could be the difference in these two terminologies, ma'am?
Okay. I'll just give one example. See, for example, in order to make our tool more reliable. So first, I'm just giving one example. Ki you prepared a tool maybe on, interest in reading. And now suppose you have prepared, it's a, the self-rated rating scale. Now, what you do is that first you go in, I'm just assuming that you prepared it for a school students. So you go in a school, 9th standard students or 10th standard students, you collect a data. Now, when you collect the data, your tool must discriminate the students who are having the high interest and the low interest, right?
Mm.
Now, after you collect this data, what you do is that you take out the 27% upper and 27% lower. Okay. The between the middle part you remove, you put them aside. 27% upper and 27% lower you have taken, and your item, your statements must discriminate between the students who are having the high interest in reading and in the low interest in reading, right? Now, what we do is that we write down the scores. Okay, now suppose you just take one statements. Whenever I get time, I take a book and read. Whenever I get time. So, do I do it frequently? Sometimes, never, whatever the rating scale you have. Now, if the person has an interest, we'll say always. And if the person does not have interest, we'll say, yeah, sometimes I do it, or, very rarely I do it, right? Now, at this first level, you write down the scores of each statement, and we try to look into how many from the higher group are having this the 4 rating scale, and how many from the lower group we have. Now that gives me I apply one formula, that is discrimination index. Now if our discrimination index is less than 0.2, then you discard the statement. Okay. And you keep only those statements that has a power to discriminate between the high and low. So it may be the high interest in reading and low interest in reading. If somebody wants to see the attitude, the favorable attitude for the library services, and the low or unfavorable attitude towards that. Okay, so whichever your tool is. So that is first step. So now here you are getting. So now you prepared the 50. When you actually came up with, you come to know that, okay, there are, the 5-6 statements that giving me the discrimination index less than 0.2. Now you will have to remove that. Okay. Now you left with, say, for example, 44 statements, correct? Now again, these 44 statements, you will go to the again another school. You will administer it again with those 44 statements only. And then you further calculate the reliability that we will be discussing later. There are various formulas for reliability. So now what happens at the first level, we calculate the discrimination index. And at the second level, in the pilot study, we have calculated the reliability. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
can you start your video, please?
Yeah. Any other question?
Nitin Savre.
hello sir. हेलो मैडम.
Hello, sir.
हाँ, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि जैसा अब अपन रिसर्च पेपर लिखते हैं कि मैं अभी रिसर्च पेपर लिख रहा हूँ अवेयरनेस ऑफ OER, तो उसमें जो डाटा है वो मेल और फीमेल है, तो वो मेल और फीमेल का मीन मोड मीडियन कैसा निकालना चाहिए वो मुझे नहीं जम रहा है.
ओके, आपके पास अवेयरनेस रिगार्डिंग OER का स्केल आपने बनाया है?
नहीं मैडम, अभी तो नहीं बनाया है.
ओके, तो पहले तो आप अवेयरनेस के लिए स्केल बनाओगे कि
ओके.
say for example you may be like people they know about this OER is or OER are available here, or this is known as OER, whatever, right?
Okay.
Am I coming across? Let me know. Okay, how do you define awareness about OER? Tell me that.
I think we may ask some questions about the OER to the people.
But then you will have to first understand what is awareness and then attach it to OER. So it is awareness, it is something the knowledge person has regarding the open educational resources, right? Okay, now you will have to first think about the tool that you are using. So if it is the rating scale, then you can go for that also, or you also can have, the questionnaire, and you can go and, or maybe they can fill in, and then you will come to know that, okay, these are, so you need to have the scores first. Okay. The moment you have the scores, as I show you कि environmental awareness की जगह आपका आएगा OER अवेयरनेस. ओके, उनके स्कोर रहेंगे. मतलब आपने सपोज 200 का सैंपल लिया है तो 200 लोगों के स्कोर्स आपको आपके पास है, राइट? और फिर आपके पास है मेल और फीमेल. नाउ वी विल बी सॉर्टिंग द डेटा. हम डेटा को सॉर्ट करेंगे और फिर हम टी वैल्यू लगाने के लिए सिर्फ मेन का जो डेटा है उसको लेंगे और सिर्फ मेन का डेटा के ऊपर पहले काम करेंगे. सो मीन मीडियन मोड उसका भी निकालेंगे, स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन उसका भी निकालेंगे, और विमेन का भी मीन मीडियन मोड, स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन, स्क्यूनेस, कर्टोसिस सब निकालेंगे. नाउ कभी कभी ये क्यों ये सब करना है, ये इसलिए करना है कि कभी कभी जो कंडीशंस है, एक कंडीशन उसमें ये भी है कि आपका जो डेटा है, आपके डेटा ने इट शुड नॉट बी स्क्यूड डेटा. सो कभी कभी हो सकता है कि डेटा स्क्यूड आया, तो ऐसे केस में आप पैरामीट्रिक टेस्ट नहीं लगा सकते, आपको नॉन पैरामीट्रिक टेस्ट के लिए जाना होगा उसके लिए, सो दैट वी कैन डिसाइड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द डिस्क्रिप्टिव एनालिसिस दैट वी आर डूइंग. ओके, सो आपका वो डेटा यदि है आपके पास तो आप एक्सेल शीट में डालिएगा, या फिर आप सोच के थोड़ा डेटा डाल दीजिए, एक रैंडम नंबर्स आप डाल दीजिए, क्योंकि आप जब भी हम स्केल तैयार करते हैं उस स्केल को कुछ तो भी मिनिमम नंबर और मैक्सिमम नंबर होएगा, राइट? और आपके जो स्कोर्स है उसका जो मीन वैल्यू है वो वहीं पे कहीं पे आएगा, एंड दैट विल डिसाइड कि वो एवरेज है या नहीं है. अगेन आई थिंक वी कैन डिस्कस दैट ऑल्सो. यस.
Okay.
Ma'am, there is one question in the chat box. Ma'am, how we can know that which statistical test is suitable for a particular question? For example, when we study the reading preferences of users in the library, the sample size being 200 or more.
Yeah. Now, what I assume is that you are talking about the preferences. So your scale is a ordinal scale, right? Now, if your scale is a ordinal scale, then you will be looking into the percentages. But if you are using the interval scale and you want to compare, then you will be going for the t-test. What criteria our data must follow, that we will discuss.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Yeah. So what is the tool that you use, sir?
We prefer questionnaire, madam.
Okay, so
And
you prefer questionnaire, and then you will be tallying the data. So maybe your statistical, instead of statistical analysis, it is more like a percentage will give you the clear picture about it. But yes, the percentages also can be compared.
but can we apply statistical test here for such a question, madam?
We can, but then first you will have to, because your data is in an ordinal scale, no?
Yes, for example, if they are giving a preference like they prefer textbooks, there some people prefer reference books, some people prefer fiction. So first we can code them and then we can do analysis, right?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Okay, madam. Okay.
Ma'am, there is one more question on this one. How to validate data with the questionnaire tool? It is asked
Okay.
by Meghna Chandatri.
Okay. Now, whenever we are preparing the questionnaire, the validation is as the first one, as I say, it is the first your operational definition. So whenever you are giving your tool for the validation to the expert, please ensure that you are giving them a title, you are giving them your operational definition and your tool. And the details of your tools also are expected, whatever the rating points you are having and all those kind of things. That is one thing. So you will have to give it to the experts, maybe 6-7 experts, and you will look into that what feedback they are giving. If 85% of your experts are saying okay, this question is okay, then you can take that question as it is. If 75% are saying, then just look into, or maybe you can get back to the expert and ask them, why are you saying this is not valid? I mean, what difficulty do you find? So maybe they ask you to, to change some words or something like that. So then you can sort it out that way. Another way, like when it is a questionnaire, so for the reliability, we go for the dry run. Now, the dry run, where we give it to a sample of 8 to 10, and we try to understand whether the questions are understood by the respondent properly, appropriately, or no. So through that dry run, you get to know that yes, like there is a question which is not answered by any of them. So it's very easy that since they are only 18 numbers, so you just can communicate or talk to them that what is so difficult they found in that question. So that is the way you can do it. But for the validity, we give it to the expert, and please provide them the operational definition properly so that they can establish the construct validity in a proper fashion.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else who wants to ask question?
In the chat box, there is one more question. Mona Deria, she wants to know about skewness and curtness. I think it was explained. Just shortly, you can explain.
Yeah. See, the skewness, it is the skewness, or your data can be skewed when the tool that is prepared is either very, easy, or, say for example, the stress, if you are taking the stress of the 10th standard students in the February, so automatic, naturally you are bound to get that many of they are stressed out because now they are having the exam. So you will get your graph which is inclined towards, the higher side. So then that becomes your negatively skewed data. So the skewness occurs in some of the data. Like again, I'll tell one more thing, that the skewness is also possible in kind of a data. Say for example, like you are asking people for their finances, and people, they don't want actually give you the data of their finances. So sometimes, like they just write some figures, because they know that you are researchers, so they may not disclose the, the entire data with you. So it depends on what are you studying. So the skewness is like, when your distribution is going on a one side, and it happens when the data is collected on a particular attribute, and that attribute is found to be extremely high in your population, or sometimes it is very extremely low in population. So that's where your skewness occur. Now kurtosis is the area that we talked about, the area occupied by the by your distribution, that is the score. So you get a graph, and when we actually draw the graph, we can come to know, okay, this is a more. And also you calculate the kurtosis, we calculate, and the statistician given us one figure, that is 0.263. That is a kurtosis value of normal probability curve. Now whatever the value we get, we compare our value with that. So as I was talking about, if our value is higher than 0.263, then our distribution is said to be platykurtic. But if our value is less than 0.263, then our distribution is said to be leptokurtic. So lepto is, very elongated kind of distribution you get, and it is more homogeneous. When our group is homogeneous, that time you get that kind of distribution. Yeah. Okay. And more question.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for clearing the doubt.
Yeah, thank you,
One
ma'am.
more question is there, ma'am.
Yeah, how to analyze
the
qualitative data. Now I think
actually that this is a question relates to the next session. That is more focusing on this part.
Yeah, but since we were talking about the statistics and the quantitative researches, because qualitative research has the, the another techniques that we have for the qualitative, and the qualitative data is analyzed in very different ways. So you come up with the codes, we come up with the themes, we come up with the patterns. So the entire, the approach of a research is very different. So, the qualitative data analysis, maybe you can read the book of Silverman that talks about the all different types of codes. So that will give you the better understanding, because it's entirely the different set of study. Saldana's book is also good for the, the interpretation, like for the coding and the themes. And so for the qualitative analysis, these two, Silverman and Saldana's books, are very easy to understand. Yeah.
Okay, over to you, Ramakant.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So good evening, respected all. On behalf of the Association of Library and Information Professionals, I stand before you with a heart full of gratitude and appreciation. Today has been a remarkable day filled with the learning, and it wouldn't have been possible without the collective efforts and support of so many wonderful individuals. First and foremost, my sincere thanks to today's keynote speaker, guest of honor, Professor Pradna Madam from SNDT University, Mumbai. Madam, your insightful words have left a permanent mark on all of us, and we are truly privileged to have had you with us today. Thanks for sharing in-depth information on the statistical technique in research. A special word of thanks to our President and Secretary and Organizing Committee member of Association of Library and Information Professionals. Your unwavering support has played a pivotal role in the success of this event. Your commitment to the association genuinely appreciated, and we look forward to continuing this fruitful collaboration. To the dedicated organizing committee and technical team, thank you for your countless hours of hard work and meticulous planning. Your attention to detail and dedication have made this event seamless and enjoyable for everyone involved. Our heartfelt appreciation also goes out to each and every attendee. Your presence has added warmth and vibrancy to the gathering. Your enthusiasm and engagement have made this event a true celebration. As we bring this event to a close for today, let us carry forward the energy and inspiration we have gained today. Together, we have created lasting memories and forged new connections. Thank you all for your being integral part of this journey. Wishing you all continued success and good health until we meet again on 30th Jan 2024 by 8 p.m. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you once again, madam.
Now I will stop the meeting.